Looking around, I finally see I think I need a change. The rat race, I wanna flee, my world I'll rearrange. I'm getting back to the roots of how it's meant to be. Growing gardens, picking fruit, racing livestock, living free. It's a modern homestead. Build a modern homestead.
Hello and welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast. My name is Harold Thornborough. I'm joined again by Rachel Jamison as usual. How you doing today, Rachel?
Great. How are you?
Hanging in there. It's hunting season. I'm feeling pretty good. I love hunting season.
Time to get some venison.
Yeah, your husband's all set up for it. He's ready to go. Do you hunt with him?
I do sometimes when I have time and I'm not working.
You shoot archery, don't you? Or do you?
I would like to, but I don't.
Oh, I thought I heard you say before you shot archery or maybe crossbow or something.
I would love to. I couldn't even begin to pull back his compound bow.
Yeah. Some of them are pretty serious.
He has a crossbow that I could use, but he's using it.
Okay, yeah.
He likes it a lot more than his
I
compound bow.
even during gun season, sometimes I just hunt with my bow because I love archery so much. I just love to shoot archery. It's just I love it more than shooting guns. So yeah, it's fun for me. But yeah, hopefully we'll all get deer this year and put a little.
I should get set up for it. I like that idea.
You'll definitely have to. Me and you both will have to definitely try to make some room in the freezer somehow, some way if we get some deer.
I think I might have to can a lot of it, but we'll see.
Yeah. I remember one year, you posting some pictures how you canned an entire deer pretty much one year. I remember you posting some pictures about that.
The same year we got a freezer full of salmon.
Yeah.
So then I had to can. It was just a bumper a year for hunting and fishing.
Yeah, that's always good. I love having some meat in the freezer for sure. What else you been doing? Finishing up the garden?
Finishing up the garden, dumping pots that are sitting around the yard. Drying. I have some herbs drying right now.
Okay.
Yep.
I have onions spread all over the table on the deck drying right now. So
wow.
I picked the last of those out, and except for I left a few in to go to seed for next year. But I got most of those out and I got a whole table covered with them right now. That's about the only thing I got going on. I had to watch my grandson yesterday because he was sick, so I didn't do any garden work or anything outside. So we just hung out and we watched hunting shows on TV. He was pretty into that.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So
this is the first year I've actually tried to make my walking onions behave and kind of go in somewhat of a row.
Okay. You just kind of put them where you wanted them to plop down.
Yeah,
huh?
like the top falls over and plants itself.
I've actually never grown walking onions, but I know how they actually grow.
Once I have enough, I'm not sure if I'll ever do other onions again.
Really? They don't get very. Did the bulbs get very big though? I mean, no. I was gonna say I didn't think they did.
Maybe a small egg size.
They're
not shaped round either. They're shot.
Good for dropping in a crock pot with some roasts and things like that,
right.
soups or whatever.
Enough of them, you could probably. If I grew enough of them, they're just so easy. Yeah.
Never have to buy seeds, never have to plant anything in the spring or get anything started. Yeah.
It's just there. They do it themselves.
Nice. Yeah.
I might not ever, we'll see. I don't have enough yet. So I'll still be planting for a couple years.
Yeah. I just always plop a bunch in the ground. It's there, I'll go down. I take seeds and I'll start some from seed early. Like I'll start those in like February. Yeah. I'll start them in like February because you got to start onion seeds really early. There's some years though, I'll just go down and buy the bulbs and pop them in the ground, and they're so easy to grow. I just don't worry about it.
I've done both the last 2 years. I've done seeds and bought the bulbs just because, you just never know how the seeds are going to.
Yeah, I usually do some of those too.
They're a lot of work to do the onions from seeds.
I'm always just so anxious to get something growing that I was like, yes, let's do onions. It's time to do onions. Let's get something going here because I get excited about planting some new seeds. by February, I'm the exhaustion has worn off and I'm ready to get started again around February.
The homestead, what do they call it? The burnout. Homestead burnout is done and now you're ready.
Right. Yeah. It starts hitting me February, March. I'm ready to get after it again. But yeah, that couple of months is off is really nice to have. We talked about that last week.
I am still saving seeds. I've saved pear tomato seeds. The little yellow ones. I love those. And so I saved some seeds this week from those.
Yeah, I was still doing some seed saving too. I actually picked some cantaloupe a couple days ago and saved some seeds out of those. So
yeah,
it was delicious too. I would never had cantaloupe taste that good out of my garden. I mean, they're always better out of your garden, but those things had a lot of flavor. They were really, really good.
Squirrels ruined all the fruit this year.
They weren't real big cantaloupes. They were a little smaller than normal, but boy, they were just super good. I mean, they had tons of flavor. So enjoyed that. I guess today we're going to talk about some of our favorite homestead resources, and we're going to go through maybe some of your favorite, my favorite, and we've got a list here, and we kind of picked some of. There were some things on your list that I would have picked, but you got your list done before I did, so I kind of picked some other stuff, so it worked out good. But yeah,
I'll be honest, I was in a hurry to get it there because I knew we'd have some of the same.
Yeah, you wanted to beat me to it, didn't you? Yes. I get you. But yeah, I mean, we're talking books today, YouTube channels, podcasts, just other resources.
Yeah. Some of them too you have on here that I'd never heard of, so I'm kind of excited to go see them.
Yeah. Oh, the YouTube channels?
Well,
just everything. Yeah.
Just everything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They're ones I listened to. And a lot of the ones you put down are stuff that I used to maybe, I've read, or a lot of it I have experience with, but I just, I've moved on to other things. And that's the thing when I pick resources of things that I'm kind of listening to or things that I'm really enjoying at the moment, it's really no reflection on what's good out there, because sometimes I've just listened to something for so long that this is the new and exciting thing, and so I'll list it right now. If you'd asked me a year ago, the list would be different. If you ask me a year from now, it'll be different again, probably. So this is just kind of the resources that are fresh in my mind right now that I'm listening to or turning to. And I think these are good resources. Both of us have some lists of some really good stuff. And this is good for beginner homesteaders and experienced homesteaders, because we're always learning new things. We're always needing more encouragement. So I just find I love diving into stuff like this, because it's what keeps me going. Honestly, I'm a weak person, Rachel. And if I don't have this kind of inspiration in my life, I can just fade away.
And I think that both of us could probably talk about this for hours, because I'll move my camera a little bit for those watching. That's just my Western collection right there. That's like 100 books right there, just Westerns. So
yeah.
We're both ferocious readers.
We tried to limit what we were going to talk about there. We tried to just pick 4, 5, 6 things in each of these topics each. And we'll kind of burn through them. We're not going to, like do book reports or anything like that. We're just going to mention them.
Because I'd have to remember.
Talk briefly maybe about them and move on to the next thing, and just give some people a list of things. And you can find all these links in the show notes. If you just don't have to worry about writing anything down, it'll all be there. You can just go and click on some links, go find this stuff.
I look forward to for the winter when
it's
down and
Exactly. It's just like what we talked about the other day is we wintertime for us is kind of a time to really soak in the resources and prepare for the next year and kind of get our motivation up, get going again. And some of these things do that. Some of these resources I've learned a lot from, learned a ton of stuff from, stuff that I never heard of, or maybe stuff I've just wanted to learn, and they have some great educational.
Yeah, this is it was fun for me. It was hard for me though to pick just a few.
Well, we're going to start out with books. You have a good little list here. And like I said, I would have picked a couple of these for sure. I would have picked right off the bat. I would have picked Square Foot Gardening that you picked. I think
that's what got me let's say
that book's been around a long time.
Got me started in my bigger gardening. Once I grew out of just planting potatoes and once I got out of just planting tomatoes and green beans and I started planting everything, the Square Foot Gardening was really, I just loved that book.
Yeah, there's a lot of basics in there. I mean, it's basically for beginners in a lot of ways, but it's just makes gardening feel doable. I think more than anything, it feels like growing in abundance in a small space. It makes it feel doable with that book. And so I find it encouraging, it's like you read that and it just seems simple, and it is.
It makes it so simple and everywhere. And the recipes are right there and everything, all the information you need is right there to start a garden. Sure.
And I've definitely changed. Like I don't do it that way anymore. I don't use the same soil amendments, but it is definitely stuff that if you're new to it, it works. It works. I'm not saying it's the best way. I found better ways, I feel like, some ways, but it's a method that will absolutely produce for you. You can get production from it. So it's a good book to have on your shelf for sure.
Yeah. I mean, he even teaches you, because a lot of people always ask, what do I do about soil? He even teaches you exactly.
Yeah. The Mel's mix. He's got in there the Mel's mix.
And I actually Googled it right before we came on, and he actually has a YouTube channel too. So.
Does he really? See, I didn't even know he had a YouTube channel.
I didn't either, but I'm like, I'm gonna look.
I've used the Mel's Mix back in the early stages when I first got started. I put in raised beds and stuff. I mixed up the Mel's Mix just like he says to do it, and I put it in my first garden beds, and it worked great. Like I said, it's not something I would want to do every time, and it could get expensive to continue to amend like that and whatnot. So I've trying to do stuff more closed loop systems on my property. But it works, and it's a good way to start out for sure. So I think it works good.
Starting out and growing where you're planted.
Yeah. And so if you're looking for a simple way to get started, that's a good book.
Well, he even shows you how to grow in a small space by going vertical.
Yes. Yeah. It's a very encouraging book. I think it's one every beginner gardener especially should have on their shelf.
Yeah, I think I have 2 of them because I found one at a garage sale. My kids wanted it because they're like, oh, we want that for when we move out. So
we're going to alternate back and forth. Now I get to pick one and go back and forth.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. My first one on my list is The Resilient Farm and Homestead by Ben Falk. I love that book. Yes. It is actually, as far as permaculture goes, it's my favorite permaculture book. It really is. I just love the illustrations in there. I love how detailed he is and scientific he is. I mean, it's just enough. It's not so deep you can't understand it, but it's deep enough to help you grow in your knowledge of it, and he's really good at explaining. Like, I'm not even a big follower of like Ben Falk on YouTube or anything like that, but I love that book. That book is my favorite permaculture book.
I follow him on Facebook.
Yeah. The only interaction I've had with him is through that book, and I like it. I really like it.
He's still doing amazing things on his farm. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, he is.
He's growing. I don't know what zone he is, but
he's
rough. He's older than me.
He's northwest or northeast. I mean, he's northeast. The
mountains of Vermont.
Yeah. He's got a pretty neat little setup there.
Zone 3, 4, because he's getting frost.
Is he that
high up? Before I do, and way after I do.
Okay. Yeah. He's doing some pretty amazing things with it. And just the book is it really helps you think about, a whole system design of your layout. It was a book that helped me even setting up a small homestead to think about how everything's working together and how to really function stack and accomplish multiple things with every area of my property and with every little, piece of equipment or every animal and every plant garden bed, or just to do everything I could with it. And it really helped me think through that, like I said, whole system design, how he puts it even.
I think that's isn't that the name of his company?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. And it makes sense. I mean, the way he lays things out, it makes a lot of sense. So it's a great book. It's a book that I highly recommend to people, especially if you're interested in permaculture.
I rented that one, or I checked that book out at the library and ended up buying it.
Yeah, it's a great one. Yep. By the way, that's a good way to do these books too. If it's something you're not sure you want, go check it out first. Books are expensive, and it's always good to just see if it is something that you want before you spend the money on it. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes a good book just isn't for you, and you don't want to spend the money on it and find that out.
Okay, your turn.
All right, The Independent Farmstead by Beth Doherty. They own Sow Ear Farm.
Yeah, I've never read that book, so that's one that I might have to put on my list.
So I think it's another one, especially if you are maybe buying a larger piece of property. I don't know if this works if you have a really small piece of property, but even if you have 2 acres or an acre, they just talk about all of the aspects of placing things where they need to go. And they kind of dumb down rotational grazing. And when I say dumb down, I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it in a good way.
Make it understandable.
Yeah. It always seemed so, I don't know.
That's how I feel about the next book I'm going to mention too.
So scientific, and I was maybe overcomplicating it. And they're just like, well, everybody says that you're supposed to have your grass like this, and it's supposed to have this in here, and we don't do that. We just stick them in there.
Yeah, well, I think sometimes it's a wake up call to overthinking, because I find that it's so easy to overthink these things, and bottom line is, things just work, whether you know how they work or not, so. And
they're just really into simple systems, and the book's just really well written. You could I think if you were thinking about buying anything more than, our little lots, I don't know if you would need that book, but since we bought the 20 acres, I think that you could use that book to help yourself think through where to place everything and how to do everything.
Nice. Yeah. Sounds like one that would be fun to read. Just get a broader perspective on things, really a bigger perspective.
And it's it's written in layman's term. It's not written all science.
That's my favorite. It's my favorite kind of book.
Yep.
My book next, we mentioned actually a few episodes ago, I talked about it in a little bit of detail, but it's the Living Soil Handbook. We were talking about it when we were talking about prepping our garden beds and stuff. And, I'm sitting here looking at it because I'm trying to find I've got it laying right here, but I got my computer sitting on it. Jesse Frost.
I've read that one, so I'm gonna have to add that to my list.
It's Living Soil Handbook by Jesse Frost. It's really good. He actually he was a podcast host. He has a podcast, and I don't think he's doing the podcast anymore. I think he's got somebody else doing it now. Okay. But it's a great book. It is the best book I found on that makes it understandable, simple. Like I said, he's a market gardener, so he's having to constantly feed that soil and do what he's doing with it. And he just makes it really simple and systematic. Like do this. And he kind of just lays it out there for you, what your soil needs. Here's how to feed it, and I just like it. It's a really good book. It's got great pictures in it, great information, charts, just all kinds of good stuff. And it's a good book. I really enjoy it.
I'm going to have to get that one too. Well, the next one I have is Rooted by Justin Rhodes.
Never read that one either. I know about that book, but I've never read it.
Yeah, this is definitely, I would say, it's definitely a beginner book.
Okay.
But it is that you could definitely use for a very small piece of property permaculture, like your acreage or what I have here with the third a lot. It's just really well put together. They tell you exactly what to do. The pictures are beautiful. And I think it's a great book for a beginner or somebody that's interested in starting homesteading.
I think Justin Rhodes has brought a lot of people into this movement with his videos and with his teachings and just what he's got going on.
He has a YouTube channel.
Yeah, I just think he is. I don't know him personally. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who have a lot of contact with him, but I want to tell you what, I love what he's done for the whole homesteading movement for sure.
Yeah, it's a very good book.
Okay.
I learned
especially for beginners.
From it. Yeah. I did it for the book club for him. And I learned a few things from it, but it's really more of a beginner book, but it gives everything, all the details. He gives lists in there of things that he uses for his chickens, things that he uses because he has raised beds that he puts the chickens on. I mean, he does like this whole.
Yeah. I've watched some of his videos on that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's wonderful for a small permaculture homestead.
Awesome. Might be one I pick up just for the inspiration.
Yeah.
My next book is Plant Partners. It's one I like. It's about companion planting. It's a science-based companion planting strategies for vegetable garden. And it's by Jessica Walliser, I believe is how you pronounce her name. And I've had it for a while. I've had that book for a year and a half. I think right after she wrote it or started coming out I heard her on a couple other podcasts talking about it. And I like it. It's good. It is a scientific approach to companion planting. It's like, okay, these work together well. Why do they work together so well? And she really just breaks it down into the scientific approach. And I like that. It really helps you think beyond just what she has in the book to think about, okay, what other plants have those qualities? So what else might work? And it just kind of helps you think through things as far as companion planting goes, so I think it's a good book to have on the shelf. I like it. So it's one I recommend.
Yay. I'm going to have to look into that one because I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a good one, I think. What's next for you?
Civil Pasture. I read this. I actually don't own it yet. It's on my Christmas list.
Is that the one by Elliot Coleman?
No, it's by Steve Gabriel.
Okay. I was thinking Elliot Coleman has one on Civil Pasture too. No, not Elliot Coleman.
I know who you mean. Mark Shepard.
Mark Shepard. That's who I meant. Yeah.
This guy, he works at Cornell Small Farm Program.
Okay.
And so this book does get into the science a little bit. It gets a little sciencey, but he works you up today. So if you start at the beginning of the book, you're building your understanding as you go through it.
Okay.
And I just really appreciated his approach to learning to integrate animals into your woods and into your pastures and what was needed to do that, because it's kind of what we're trying to do with our 20 acres instead of creating your typical farm that most people are used to seeing. Yeah, we wanted to do that because we want to feed our animals part of the trees and such. So I felt like it was really put together to the point where I checked it out from the library and paid late fees. and I'm buying it. Or buying it for me for Christmas.
I find
and what it's done before.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mentioned Mark Shepard a minute ago, and he does a lot with both silvopasture and alley cropping. And I find both of those techniques really fascinating. It's just as far as like the way you can use your land in a multiple ways for function stacking. Again, we back to that topic again.
It makes your life easier, and it makes the animal's life better. And
the crops and the animals, or multiple crops, if you're alley cropping, could benefit from one another. They're working in conjunction with each other and helping each other. So it's really good.
I like the idea behind it. We'll see if we can implement it.
Like I said, I kind of do it with quail tractors by walking them through and among my stuff. It's kind of, I do it, but I am more than enclosed. They're not really freely grazing, but I'm doing the movement for them, and it works pretty well.
I think you can easily do something like that on a small scale, like you are. I mean,
I think it works great
with quail, with
chickens. Absolutely.
Definitely. Even in town.
For sure. My next book is one I mention all the time on this podcast because I just like it so much. It's just an inspirational book. It's The Self-Sufficient Life and How to Live It by John Seymour. It's a big, thick, heavy, hardback book that you could beat something to death with, but it is packed with good information. I mean, it's just inspiring. Like if you're just wondering, okay, what's the next thing I want to learn in homesteading? Get that book and flip through the pages. You're going to find something in there that's going to tickle your fancy and go, ooh, I want to learn that, because it's just full of good stuff. I love it. It's just one. I own it too. I love it. Yeah, it's a fun book to have on your shelf. I pull it off all the time and just look through and say, okay, what do I want to learn next? What do I want to do on this homestead next? And it just gives you tons of great ideas. I like it. So it's one I mention a lot. So I won't go into a lot of detail about it, but I like it a lot.
Okay, so my next one is actually very old.
I've got it sitting here too. Matter of fact.
Oh, that's right. You bought that. I love this book. It was written in 1864.
Just jumping in here to tell you that while I was editing the podcast, I realized we didn't mention the title of this next book. It is 10 Acres Enough by Edmund Morris.
So, and I just love it.
I think it starts off kind of slow, but it gets better as it goes on. Yeah,
it does. I mean, if you can get past the first few pages, it kind of sucks you in. And then after that, it's
because in the beginning, he's just he's telling the story of how they got there, and that is a little bit dry, I find, but yeah.
But then he gets into how he does things, and it's like,
he kind of goes against the grain on a lot of things too, of the conventional farming of the time.
Then we were coming into like the Industrial Revolution, and everybody wanted to do all of the everything what they thought was better with machine things, before we named it that. And I think it's a book, even if you weren't a homesteader, you would enjoy, because it's just a story about a family.
It's kind of an autobiography of how his venture into farming. It's kind of kind of goes along something similar to the book I'm going to mention next, which is The Good Life by Helen and Scott Nearing. It's their 60 years of self-sufficient living. And it tells their story of how they basically just got a property, and they lived self-sufficient on this property for 60 years. And
I have not read that one.
It's a great book. Now, they definitely have a lot of political leanings that I wouldn't agree with, and they're I believe they're vegetarians, which of course I'm not, but I find I'm just inspired by their commitment to the lifestyle and their pursuits of it, and they did not give up, and they made it work. It's like anybody could do it for a few years or maybe a year or two. They lived their entire lives doing it. That's a lot. And they did some amazing thing. Like they did all their own buildings and construction. They did. I mean, it is truly self-sufficient living what they did. It's amazing. I mean, they would buy the equipment they'd save up through sales of what they were producing on their property, buy the equipment they needed to produce more stuff. They were doing some amazing things, and it's just a fun book to read. Like I said, they get into some things that I'm like, I don't agree with that at all, but I'm so inspired by their commitment to the lifestyle that I overlooked all that. It was just a really, really good book. So it's one that I enjoyed reading a lot.
Now, this next one, I wish I would have brought it in here because I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I read it, and I enjoyed it so much I bought it for a friend. And it's called Up Tunket Road.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, it's similar to what you were just talking about, except for they didn't live there 60 years. This couple built a house themselves, and it was all off grid.
Mm-hmm.
And they rebuilt the barn, and they just have a lot of struggles when they're doing it, trying to, how it is.
So another autobiography,
yes.
kind of what they
kind of, but I think they only lived there for like 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
But they had kids while they were there, and it was just all the struggles that happened with that. They farmed with oxen.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's been one of my favorite books, but I haven't read it in a while, and I got when I was writing.
I bet that would be a good book. Yeah.
I thought
I would like to get that
again because it was so good. I would read it.
I love stories like that. I just love hearing about
I do too. I would
the life,
That's what I was thinking when I was looking this up to get the link on Amazon.
Yeah.
You know how it gives suggestions below? I was I need another read like that. But I think I'm gonna go do The Good Life.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a good book. And it's something like it's similar in a way in the same vein as the next book I will mention, which is Paradise Lot, which I love, especially if you're into permaculture. Again, it's permaculture, but Paradise Lot takes place on a small property. I mean, it's something like you and I have been doing for the last few years. And the subtitle is Two Plant Geeks, 1/10 of an acre and the making of an edible garden oasis in the city. And
read it again.
It's a good book. I love it. It's just, they really break down on the details of what they were doing, how they were planning, why they did it, what worked, what didn't work. I mean, it's just a fun read. I love it. It's a good book. They did an
amazing job. I think it was a duplex or something, wasn't it? A duplex, if I remember.
I believe it was, yeah, because both of them, there were two single guys. They ended up getting married, and then they moved on each side of the duplex. I do believe. It's been a while since I read it, but yeah.
The cool part is they did all of that, and they still enjoyed living next to each other enough.
Yeah, I know they didn't become mortal enemies, which you would think was inevitable, but they didn't. And they built just an amazing little place. And
I remember reading that quite a while ago. I need to read it again, but I really enjoyed it. I think
it's a good book.
Can you remind me of the authors?
It's Eric Tonesmeyer and Jonathan Bates, I believe, are the.
I wonder if they've gone on to do anything else because this was a while ago.
Eric Tonesmeyer wrote he helped Dave Jackie write his 2 books on food forests. He is a contributor to that, so he's pretty involved, with that. So he knows a lot about companion planting and food forests and things like that. So I know that he even talks a little bit about because I think he actually worked on the books with Dave Jackie before this, before he wrote Paradise Lot. So basically, again, it's just a story of these 2 guys making it happen on a 10th acre lot, which is
they grew.
It's amazing.
Amazing. I mean,
yeah, they do some pretty cool stuff. So, and it's just a cool looking lot. I mean, they did some neat things, and they were doing. It's funny too because they're doing some illegal stuff. Like they're supposed to have chickens in their area, and they bring in chickens, and there's like a house fire across the street, and the people's like, "Hey, well, you have chickens over there," and all this kind of stuff. It's just there's a lot of funny stories in it about what they were trying to get away with sometimes, and trying to make differences. And it's just fun. It's a fun read. It's a good book. I enjoy it.
I love it when they marry a story to the information.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, it's a well-written story, I think. So good stuff. Well, we limited ourselves. We could write hundreds of books down. We could probably recommend, but we wanted to limit it to just a handful here. So we'll move on to YouTube channels now. Well, what YouTube channel do you want to first recommend?
This was hard for me because I read and watch videos more than I actually read websites. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't admit that considering the fact that I have a blog now, but anyways, Townsend's, and it used to be just Townsend and Son, but when I went there, they've changed it to Townsend's. And I think it's because his dad recently passed away. So I'm not sure, but they do a lot of historical. I'm sure almost everybody that's in homesteading knows his page, but they do a lot of historical cooking. And
I didn't know it until you mentioned it a few episodes ago on something when we were talking about preserving food, maybe 10 episodes ago or something. We were talking about preserving food, and you mentioned their YouTube channel, and I went and checked them all out, and I didn't know about them.
Yeah, they're fascinating. They're not too far from you. I believe they're in Indiana.
I think they are. Aren't they affiliated with Connor's Prairie?
I'm not sure.
I think they are, which is they do stuff like they do
it's
the
like
old
kind of
ways.
like reenacting.
Yeah, they do reenactments and all that stuff. I'm pretty sure they're affiliated with Connors
But
Prairie.
recently, they've been doing some more homesteading stuff. Like they built a log cabin and built fireplace. They do it all historically, and they've made a few ovens, like earthen ovens.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were. When I looked it up back time, I'm pretty sure they're the people affiliated with Connors Prairie. Yeah. And my grandson just went on a field trip there. Him and my daughter took him on a field trip there, and so they went to Connors Prairie. So you probably witnessed a lot of that stuff. So I went there when I was a kid. When I was a little kid, I remember going there. It's been around a long time.
Yeah, and I don't know if it would be considered like homesteading and permaculture, but it certainly is.
It's historical living for sure.
There's skills there, like cooking from scratch and cooking over a fire and making things. There's a lot of skills there that go into homesteading. So yeah, we've watched that channel for years. Yeah,
it's pretty good. I mean, like I said, I didn't even know about it until just recently when you mentioned it. So yeah, I found that interesting. My first one I'll mention is one I've been watching for a long time, and I really like him. And for the life of me, I can't think of his name, but the YouTube channel is called Edible Acres, and it is a permaculture nursery in upstate New York. And he puts out a couple videos a week and really good informational stuff. Like he really gets into his how he's function stacking and doing compost and using his chickens. And he's running a nursery, so he's growing all these plants. He's even telling you how to do it in a way that you could sell your plants if you wanted to. I just love it. He knows a lot about permaculture, and he's just a really good teacher, I think. And he does a good job. So it's one I like.
Follow that. I have not heard of that one.
Edible Acres. Yeah, it's really good. So it's the one like I said, I've been watching him for years. I've never gotten tired of it. I still try to catch most of his episodes.
That's how I feel about Townsend.
Yeah.
For years, and
I like it when you can find one you can just stick to, and it's just always a good go-to to watch. So what's next for you?
10th Acre Farm. Now this one, I think you introduced me to.
Yeah, I didn't even know she had a YouTube channel. I didn't even know she had a YouTube channel. I followed her blog for years and didn't even know.
You introduced me through your blog because you blogged about her.
I've mentioned her a few times. Yeah.
A while ago. And so you got me interested in it. And I didn't realize she had a YouTube channel.
I didn't either. I still didn't know that. I
started watching her YouTube channel.
I'm going to have to watch it because, I didn't know that she had one. Amy Strauss is her name.
She's super small, 10th acre, which we always appreciate that because we're more urban, suburban homesteaders.
Well, she actually moved to a little bit bigger place.
Right.
It used to be that she was 10th acre farmer. I don't think she is 10th acre anymore. They used to be a small plot, and then they actually got a little bit bigger property now, right. I do believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know she had a YouTube channel. I'll have to go check it out because, like I said, I've been talking about their website for a long time. But yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I think I bet the YouTube channel is really good. My next one I'll mention is Three Rivers Homestead. Do you ever watch them?
No.
Jessica, I believe is her name, and they're a family. I think she's got 7 kids and another one on the way, and they homeschool and they're growing most of their own food, and it's amazing. She's doing amazing things. And she just does these really good videos of cooking and canning and preserving and doing in the garden and working with the kids. And just, I find her really inspirational. I just think it's a really good channel. I think you'd really like it. I know you would like it.
I have new ones to watch.
That's one I think you would really, really like. So yeah, check that one out. Three Rivers Homestead. It's definitely definitely enjoyable channel. And it's very inspiring. Like I said, when I'm getting really burned out on preserving food this time of the year, I can watch her and go, okay, don't be a sissy. Look at her. She's like 7 months pregnant doing this. You get in the kitchen and get this stuff done. Right. So yeah, it's a fun one. I like that channel.
I have my next one, of course, is Justin Rhodes, which is, I think his YouTube channel is called Justin Rhodes.
I think it's Justin Rhodes Abundant Permaculture. I think maybe he's in there too or something.
And of course, he's played with different things. For a long time, he was making shorter videos. Now he's back to making longer videos. I myself appreciate the longer videos, but
I loved their bus tour when they did their bus build and did their bus tour all the way around the United States visiting homesteads.
That was so fun.
I loved it.
A couple of years ago. So you would have to you'd have to go to their YouTube channel and go way back.
And they actually made a movie
They did
about that and put it all in like in a package, it in a movie. And I think I've watched it. I don't know if I watched it on Amazon Prime or where I watched that, but it was on one of those and I watched it.
Yeah,
and it was really good.
That, and then they have, like, if you go way back, you can see when he kind of he was using he didn't have as many animals and he was using the chickens.
He done a document thing called Permaculture Chickens was the video.
Permaculture pigs too.
Yeah, I see. I don't remember that one, but I remember.
But I love how he does the chickens. It's just make the chickens work for you. It's just really
good stuff. So, he's been doing videos for a long time, and he's got a lot to choose from.
And
so
I've watched him he's another one that I've watched for years. That now I watch more.
His kids were so little when I started watching, and now they're like riding dirt bikes and stuff.
When I started watching, he had 3 children.
Yeah, the youngest
now they have 5.
Yeah, they've had a couple since. So
it's just fun to watch their little family grow, and
it is. They're good family. So it's enjoyable, and I agree. My next one is Charles Dowding. Do you ever watch Charles Dowding?
Yes.
I just love the no-till gardening, and his garden's beautiful. I love his garden. Every time I look at it, I go, I want it. I want that garden right there.
I have a little bit of garden envy.
Every time there's like totally weed free. It's like perfect. I don't know. I imagine they put a lot of work in to keep it that way, but it's completely no-till, and he shows how he does that. Lays the cardboard down, does the little lasagna thing. Uses his composting system is amazing. He's just got some really good videos, and he does like monthly garden tours and stuff, and walks through and shows you what's working good, what's not. Great stuff. I love it. He does a lot of experiments on no-till and not growing no-till, just to show the difference, how it really doesn't affect the growth or anything like that. He's just real educational, and man, I just sit there and watch his garden all day. I love it.
It's so beautiful.
And he's a market gardener, so he's the rotation's important for him. He's really keeping things going, but he keeps it so beautiful and clean. It's just amazing. So that's one I like.
Yeah, that is it. I actually haven't watched a lot of his YouTube channel. I follow him more on Facebook. And
really? See, I don't follow many social medias. I've just followed him on.
Yeah, and I need to watch his YouTube. I just have a hard time finding time to watch YouTube.
It's good stuff.
I usually catch up.
Well, this winter you can catch up on him. It's good stuff.
Yep. So my next one is John Jeavons.
Okay.
He actually has a book too, which I've shared before, How to Grow More Vegetables.
Yes, yeah, I remember sharing that.
His video series is like so I do no-till, but then I do the biointensive double digging when I start. And I don't know if he was the founder of it, but he uses that technique. Okay. And his techniques, John Jeavons has developed a technique for third world countries. Mm-hmm. So a closed loop system, mostly for vegetarians, just because that's what a lot of people are around the world. And he goes into these third world countries and shows these people how to build gardens and become sustainable to feed themselves, because so much of the world has food issues.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's a really good, and he shows them how to make their own fertilizer. They grow actually fertilizer plots with growing grains and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they compost it. And anyways, his videos are really informational.
Awesome. Yes. One to check out. I haven't actually went to his videos.
They're very old, like, probably 90s. So you're not going to see the quality there, but the information's there.
Great. Yeah. Well, my next one is another permaculture one. And this guy just came around. I actually just found him maybe a year ago. Canadian Permaculture Legacy is the name of the YouTube channel. And the guy is he's got a beautiful place for one thing. He had this really neat pond put in right behind his house. And it looks natural, but he actually had it installed, and it's got like a small waterfall, and it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful pond, and they swim in it and everything. It's right behind his house. But then he's just got a really nice property, and he's been working at it for a few years, putting in these guilds, and it's just an amazing piece of property. And the guy is just knowledgeable. He really gets in there and he talks about what a guild is and how to build one. He talks about soil. He gets really deep and gets some science. He is a scientist to some degree, and so he gets into talking about a lot of those things. And I enjoy. I really enjoy the channel. It's a good channel, and just looking at his property is inspirational. I just love it. Nice. It's good stuff. So it's one I enjoy.
I love I love the inspiration. I think that's
it's what keeps me going more than anything.
Especially when you start to get like this time of year when you're just like, oh yay, more peppers. Oh yay, more tomato. You just get exhausted. That watching these is so inspirational.
Okay. Your next one is one I would have probably mentioned had it not been on your list.
Verge Permaculture?
Verge Permaculture. I really like them. Yeah.
I do too. I mean, they have some paid videos when you go to their website, but their YouTube is full of information.
Their early stuff,
free.
When they had their little property, now they've upgraded their property and went to a bigger piece of property. But man, I was so inspired by what they were doing, especially with water collection on their little property, how they had it coming off the roof, filling a tank, the overflow would go through, and they had like these swells, and we're talking an urban property, like 1/10 of an acre, and it would walk through the pathways on the property, water the gardens. It was just, they put some, now him and his wife are both engineers by trade. So this was kind of, for them to come up with this was, probably nothing for them, but I love the way they designed it. Yeah. And then they did some amazing things with that little piece of property.
They have some pretty nice classes now.
Yeah. They're still doing a lot of stuff.
But their YouTube channel, of course, is all free, and they have.
Yeah, they all actually offer permaculture design courses now, PDCs, I think, through Verge Permaculture. Yeah, online. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have a website too. So,
yeah. It's good stuff.
It is.
I like them. My next one is Hugh Richards. He kind of, to me, falls in the same vein as Charles Dowding. He's they're across the pond. He's across the pond, and he's got just an amazing garden, doing some really cool stuff. I mean, I love his garden. He's just got a beautiful garden. He gets in there and talks about, the soil amendments and all the same stuff. I just enjoy it. It's just another one of them. If you're looking for some inspiration, and again, across the pond. So, you get the nice fancy accent, makes them sound even smarter than they probably are, which I like, so not like us country folk around here. We dumb it down.
My almost Canadian accent.
Oh, my Indiana / Tennessee twang over here. Yeah. We don't sound too smart over in these parts, but hey, we figured it out.
That British accent, and they just sound so sophisticated.
Yes, it does. Whether they are or not, we don't care. It just makes it sound good. So you just listed you just kind of ran through a whole list on your next. You was like, I can't decide. So you just put down a whole bunch of names.
I mean, Elliot Coleman, Greg Judy, Ben Falk, Alan Savory. I mean, you could just there's so many. And there's so many videos out there that
there's some good stuff out there.
I mean, it doesn't replace actually doing things, but we're blessed to live in a time where you can just turn on the internet.
There's so many free resources out there for stuff like that, and just get that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll move along because this is probably stretching out kind of long. So we'll move on to websites. We both, you listed 4, I listed 5. So I'll start out. So we in the right place here. Permaculture News is one of my favorite websites. It's all permaculture. I believe it's Jeff Lawton's, who's a big player. It's his website, I believe, or at least he's on there a lot. I don't know if he actually built the website or not, but it's great stuff though. I mean, just tons of good information. If you're interested in food forests, swells, just anything to do with permaculture, there's articles there about it. So I really like that. I think it's the best permaculture website out there. Just tons of information. So it's one to check out.
There was a video he did a long time ago.
He's got a good YouTube channel too. Yeah, by the way.
With like an urban chicken setup where they even put like herbs and stuff for the chickens to eat to help.
Oh yeah.
The chickens be healthy.
He's just every aspect of permaculture with function stacking and all that stuff. He's always doing videos on all kinds of stuff. I mean, but he gets simple too. He'll show you how to make a vermicomposting bed or a raised bed or whatever. I mean, he'll get that kind of stuff too. And you get that kind of stuff on the website as well. So it's a good website to go to and visit. So check that one out. And then your first one is again, you mentioned, just like you mentioned the video.
10th Acre Farm, which is repetitive, I know, but it's a very good website.
It is. She does. Yeah. She was blogging before she ever did anything else. Yeah. And it's a great blog.
Free resources. Yep. Just some really good. And I think she's got a great YouTube, or I'm sorry, she has a great couple of PDF files that you can download about learning how to do permaculture and I mean, really
permaculture on a small scale. I actually have her book called The Suburban. I can't remember what the name is. I feel bad because it is a book I have, and it's basically on small scale permaculture. It's Suburban something. I can't remember though, but just look her up. Amy Strauss book. It's a good book. I have it. Like I said, it just covers permaculture on a small scale, on a small lot. It's a good book too. So it's a good website. Check out the website for sure.
Well, and she just goes through and teaches you how very simple. What is permaculture? Some people don't know what it is.
Here's a website I'll mention that is really just tons of good information, and it's Common Sense Home. Lori, I can't remember her last name, but I don't know how many articles she's got. She's been doing this blog for a long time, and she takes great pictures of what she's doing. It's very authentic. She's getting in there doing the work. Tons of garden stuff, tons of animal stuff, tons of kitchen stuff. Just, I mean, all around preparedness stuff. I mean, it's just an all around great website. And a lot of times when you're searching for something, you'll see her at the top of the search. As far as like you're searching for something in homesteading, she makes the top of the list on a lot of searches because it's just that good of a website. So that'd be my next one.
My next one is a different one. It's actually a Gab page, which you do not have to be a member of Gab to actually see his stuff. So
okay.
Just so people know, but he is my mentor, and he actually has trained under John Jeavons and Elliot Coleman and taught with them. He's a very good teacher, and that's his gift, is teaching. He knows how to take all of some complex subjects and just take them down into layman's term, and he makes really short videos, but he just has this magic.
I believe you mentioned him on another podcast, I believe, and I think I went to the site and looked at it and checked some of the stuff out. It was good stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and he's doing some more Korean natural farming, but he has videos there and a lot of blogs, and it's all very well organized. So I couldn't help but share it just because he's just really knowledgeable.
Sounds like one worth putting out there for sure.
He grows amazing. His gardens are just beautiful.
Well, my next one is just what it says. The title of it is exactly the name of the website. It's growforagecookferment.com. And that's what they cover: growing stuff, foraging stuff, cooking stuff, fermenting stuff. It is just a information packed website. It's just good. If you're looking to experiment with all kinds of different fermentations or just all kinds of stuff, there's just a ton of good how-to on that website. So it's one to check out for sure and put on your list of go-to websites.
Very cool.
Next,
all right, my next one is Permies.
See, I would have put that one down for sure if you hadn't put it down.
That's Paul Wheaton's site, and he has all sorts of.
It's a forum mostly.
Yeah, it's mostly a forum, and then he has some. And the forum's a little, I don't know, it's a little bit hard to figure out. It's not designed like your normal website.
Yeah, it is. It is. I agree with you. Yeah, it's not traditional even forum. It just seems like it's kind of hard to follow sometimes.
Forums. It's not. Like
it's old. Yeah, it hasn't changed for years. That forum's been around a long time, and it hasn't changed. It hasn't updated anything.
There is so much information.
Oh, yeah. A lot of times, if you're searching for things, especially in the permaculture, it's where you'll find links. Like if you're looking for a certain topic or something in permaculture, it's usually in the top 2 or 3.
It's been being discussed since the internet came around.
Yeah, pretty much. There's some great conversations there. I've been involved in that side a while. I've had some good conversations on the forum in there and been involved with some stuff in there too. It's a really good resource for information.
It's a great resource.
Yep, it really is. My next one is Practical Self-Reliance. It's just another blogger. She's been around a long time, got some really good articles. Again, it's probably one, if you search for self-reliance stuff or homesteading stuff, you've probably came across it. She's just got a lot of good articles out there, and just tons. I don't know, I'd say hundreds, if not 1,000 articles. I don't know how many's on that site, but it seems like there's a lot of articles on that site. So it's a good one. I don't know, let's leave it at that.
That's cool. Well, the next one is Dakota Cohen. It's Cohen Farm. He's out of Canada. He just has some really outside the box thinking that I really appreciate. He's a permaculturist. He did just write a book, which I have not read. I'm interested in.
This is one I've not heard of, so I'm anxious to go check this one out.
He did some stuff with Curtis Stone for a while.
Okay. Yeah. I think I do know who you're talking about now. Now that you mentioned that.
I'd be surprised if he's even 30.
Okay. I think I do know who you're talking about. Yeah. Really, I'll go to the site and check that out.
Really outside the box thinking, especially for like animal feeds. One of my favorite videos is he was actually taking duckweed off of a pond and then feeding that to his pigs. I mean,
Okay.
and he did this whole video on how he feeds his pigs, just totally outside the box. And he's got this whole permaculture farm, and it's just beautiful. So.
Nice. Definitely one I'm gonna have to go look at. Maybe I've came across it before, but sounds familiar, but I'm gonna go check that out for sure. My last one I'll mention is Homesteading Family. And I probably could have mentioned them in the YouTube because their YouTube channel is awesome. Yeah. And I am going to mention them in the podcast here in a minute because they have a podcast too. It's from their YouTube channel, basically. And it's just fantastic stuff. Super nice people. Like, I don't know them personally, but when I watch them on YouTube or go to their website, I want to know them because they seem such a likable couple that I just love everything they're doing. They just explain things really well. He's more in the garden and, out in the fields and with the animals, and she's more in the kitchen with the preserving and the cooking and the things. And they do a great job, and they offer courses, and they got a lot going on, but their free resources are just great. So one worth checking out. The website's great. Honestly, the YouTube's probably even better, and the podcast is great too. So the podcast is actually, I think they do a thing, which let's just jump into it. I'll mention it first for the podcast, but they do a podcast called Pantry Chat. They actually do the video called Pantry Chat, but then they turned the Pantry Chat part of the YouTube into a podcast. So
I think I've watched the YouTube of this.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. They just do the same thing. I think it's Pantry Chat podcast from the Homesteading family. So it's the first one I'd mentioned, but it's a great resource, great stuff. And they're just such likable people that you can't help but listen to them. They're really good. What about you for podcasts?
My first one was Jill Winger's, which is Old Fashioned on Purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I just really enjoy her podcast.
I had Jill on this podcast years ago. She did not have that podcast when I had her on this podcast. So she started that shortly after I had her on this podcast. So yeah, I really like Jill, especially when it comes to stuff in the kitchen. She's very knowledgeable with stuff.
Yeah, and she recently has started doing a lot of gluten-free stuff.
Yeah. And if you're into horses, Jill's a person to follow because she's a big horse person. So she loves, yes, you are. She loves horses, and she's been riding horses and doing things for years with horses. So she's fun to listen to. She wrote some books, and I think that's why I actually had her on. She released a book at the time when I had her on. Yep. Yeah. And good stuff. Yeah. Her podcast is great. The next one I'll mention in podcast is Homesteading and Gardening in the Suburbs by Misfit Gardening. It's just a nice just a good little conversation about homesteading. I mean, she's just talking about homesteading in the suburbs. It's good stuff. Easy, simple.
My next one is the Regenerative Agriculture podcast.
I like that one. Yeah, that's probably one that would have made my list.
Very sciencey though.
It is, and
I do enjoy it though.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it gets pretty deep.
It gets you thinking.
It's pretty deep for sure.
But once you get past, sometimes it just puts about different ideas and maybe.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
My next one on the list was The Homesteading Journey with Brian Wells, another one who has been on my podcast, and he's just consistent. He's putting them out there. It's a great podcast. He's doing the things. He's homesteading. I mean, he's got a piece of property. He's raising pigs. He's doing chickens. He's growing the gardens, and he just loves to talk about it. And he's a really nice guy. Like I said,
find that one.
I should have put down the episode numbers that some of these people were on this podcast, so I could have just promoted those two. I might put the links in the show notes underneath these recommendations, so you can go listen to them on this podcast before you even go check out those podcasts. But good stuff. Yeah, he's a really likable guy. I really like Brian. Nice guy, and they're doing some big community stuff up there too, where he's at. He's part of that homesteading conference they do up in the
Homesteaders of America.
Well, it's not the Homesteaders of America. It's the one more for their region. It's the New England Homesteaders of New England.
Okay.
And he's a player in that. I don't know what all he's got going on with that, but he's part of that. Yeah, he's definitely one that's just doing some stuff there. Well, what do you have next?
The one I have next is Living Free in Tennessee, Nichole Sauce.
She's been on this podcast also.
I didn't realize she'd been on. I know that you had. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. She's been on this one. Yeah.
She's got a lot going on.
She's good.
She does a lot of, she's kind of a mix. She's a really mixed bag, but she does a lot of homesteading. This year, she's done a lot of homesteading and canning. She recently got sheep and She does some prepping, and she does a lot of business because she came from the business world.
Yeah. And she talks a lot about making money homesteading, and she does things. She takes, she does like Airbnbs and things like that. So she's always
she also talks a lot about very frugal living.
Yeah. She's just got a lot going on. And I think when I had her on, I think our main topic was basically being self-reliant income or something. I don't know, just trying to make some money from your property or side hustles. I think is what we actually talked about, was just doing side hustles because she's had a lot going on,
Her coffee business is her big.
Yeah. Her coffee business was her main thing. Yeah. So she's got a lot going on. It's a good podcast. She's busy. She does a lot of them too. I think she puts out multiple a week.
I think she does like 5 a week. It's
yeah, she was when I
busy.
First she was putting out like 1 a week, but then she started increasing it, and she just got busy with it. So yep, she's a busy person. She's got a lot going on there. So it's an enjoyable one as well. The next one is a podcast that we were both on. I was just on it, and it just released yesterday. As a matter of fact, of course, you're listening to this 2 weeks from now.
To listen to it. I haven't yet.
Yeah, listen to it. Yeah, I didn't listen to it either, but I was on it, so I don't need to. But Plans and Provisions by Jason White. He's a very nice guy. He does a great job with the production of it. Very professional. And he's got some great guests on, besides me and you, of course. So he had some other great guests on, but we've both been on there. And he's I think it's going to be a good podcast in the future. He's only done a 24, 25 episodes, something like that so far, but man, he's on his way. You can just tell it's going to be a great podcast. Yeah, he does a great job. It's going to be a really good podcast. So go check that one out. And like I said, I was just on. Now I'm saying it just released yesterday, but 2 weeks from now, this podcast will be released. So it'll be a couple weeks old by the time you hear this.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot.
Yeah, we try to get a couple episodes ahead, so we always have one in the can there. Yeah.
And my next one is the Holistic Herbalism podcast by
one I've not listened to, but I definitely want to check it out.
Katja and Ryan. I actually just started listening to this, and I've been trying to get a little bit more into some herbals, and I've been using medicinals for a while, but I'm not an herbalist or anything. And these people are, and it's just really informative. They do a really good job.
Well,
I really enjoy
we were talking before we started the podcast today that we'd love to get some real an herbalist on the podcast, somebody who's really into it that could go.
Anybody in the audience?
Yeah, we would love to have somebody on who's doing it for a living, or who's really into it, maybe, or whatever, and just knows a lot of the tips and tricks of it. And we don't want it to be so deep that just anybody can do it. I mean, but at the same time, I'm very interested in it, and I know a lot of people are, because I don't want to get too deep into that, but the attitude of the whole medical system kind of bothers me a little bit. Just the way it's about providing you with, or getting you hooked on medicines more than it is about healing you, I think, in some ways. Maybe I shouldn't go down this rabbit trail.
I appreciate the integrated approach.
Yes, me too.
If I have to use an antibiotic, great. But if I can,
I'm thankful for some things, but I also think there's an abuse in the system where it's more about just keeping you on medicines than it is about getting you healthy. And maybe that sounds conspiracy theories. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't go down this trail.
I spent 20 years very sick with chronic autoimmune diseases that basically left me bedridden. And I'm not here because of doctors. I'm here because of food and herbs.
Yeah. So. And everybody knows my cancer story that listens to this podcast. So I kind of went that way too.
I like the integrative approach. If there's a stop sign sticking out of me, or I need an antibiotic, I will take it. But if my allergies are really bad, I'd rather. And
surgeries, I don't want to perform surgery on myself. I need a surgery. I want a doctor that knows what they're doing to do that. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, I think we can do both.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a place for it. And I'd like to know, I'm always learning about it, but I'd like to learn more, so I'd definitely like to have somebody on that knows a little bit more about that. Well, that's all the podcasts. I mean, there's tons out there. That was just ones that currently I'm listening to. And there's tons of good ones out there. So, but now you started the other media thing here. So you kicked it off. So I thought, well, I'm going to get into it then. If you're going to go there, I'm going to take it there too.
I couldn't help myself. Biggest little farm.
Biggest little farm is, what's funny? You put this note up, our podcast notes up like Monday or something. That night I was like, oh, I want to watch that again now. So I went and watched it again that night because it just reminded me how good it was.
It's just so inspirational.
It is. And it's not, here's the problem I have with that movie. I love it. It's inspirational, but it feels out of my reach to ever accomplish something like that, because they spent so much money. He raised so much money to do what they did, that it feels like something I could never do. It feels like it's just out of my realm, but it's still beautiful piece of property and it's fun to watch. And it gets you in touch with some of the challenges of something like that, especially doing it the way they did it with permaculture and things. And so it's a good movie. It's a really good movie. I don't think
our little 20 acres is never going to have that kind of financial support.
No. And yeah, so that's much we'll say about it. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a good movie.
You can learn things even and kind of do it on your own, some of it. So,
And I found it for free on Hulu. So if you got a Hulu subscription.
And the 3 that you put here, so what happened was I put Biggest Little Farm down and then I got busy and.
You were going to put these down, weren't you?
Well, I don't know if I was going to put these down, but I would have to say that the Edwardian Farm, well, I'll let you say them, but these, I have probably watched each of these. There's also more.
Yeah, I've watched these 3, though, several times. Yeah, Tudor Farm or something. There's a few of them.
Yeah. Anyways, they have a whole series of them.
Anyway, the 3 we're talking about, because we were just skipping right past it, is Edwardian Farm Series, the Wartime Farm Series, and the Victorian Farm Series are the 3 I listed. And I actually put playlists in the notes that you can watch the entire thing on YouTube for free. So I just did a search and I found them.
Yeah, they're amazing.
They are definitely worth watching. It's basically they go back and they show you how they did it during those times. And it's fascinating. I cannot
even tell you how many times I've watched
them a few times, especially the Victorian Farm and the Wartime Farm. I think I've watched the most, and I've watched those a few times. Yeah. I've watched both of those 4 or 5 times, the whole series 4 or 5 times. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, if you have not watched these and you enjoy homesteading, you will like these.
I think I heard you. What was it? What's her name? Ruth, the lady that's in it, Ruth something.
Is it Goldman?
Goldman, I think. I think I heard you refer to her as your spirit animal one time in a blog post or on a.
I could talk for hours to her if I ever ran.
Oh yeah,
hours.
It's a fun show. It's entertaining. It's good. I mean, you're just gonna love it. If you've never watched it, go watch them. They are great, and it's UK.
It's a BBC series.
Yeah.
They're all historians.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, it's just a great show. Just go watch it. If you've never watched those series, you got to watch them. So the links will be in there for the YouTube.
I've actually hunted down a few of the books that they talk about a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
I found them. I mean, of course, they're old.
I did too. I got one that they mentioned. I can't remember what it was now, but yeah, there was one I found and bought. Good stuff, though. Yeah, they're worth watching. If you got some extra time this winter and you want to sit down in the evening and watch some series, go check those out. If you've never seen them, you've got to watch them. They're really good. So that's all. I mean, there's so much out there. This thing could have went on for days because there's just so much good stuff out there, but that will get you started for sure. If you're looking for some resources to inspire, motivate, educate, it'll do all those things. So,
and for those in the podcast that are listening to the podcast and watching the YouTube, obviously you got to go to the website because you'll see all the links there for all of these.
Oh, I put them in the show notes. Yeah, you'll find them in the show notes. But we will jump on. I did want to take on one more thing, and that was a question in the Homestead Front Porch. And Tim asked a good question. I think it was a relevant question, and it was answered not by me or you, but I thought it's a good enough question and answer that I think it's important for people to hear it. And I thought we should mention it on the podcast. Tim in the Homestead Front Porch Facebook group, which if you're not a member of, click on the link, go be a member of the Homestead Front Porch Facebook group. It's worth being in there because you get questions like this and you get answers like this every day. And this is one I just thought listeners needed to hear the answer to this, not just the people in the group. But Tim asks, herbicides on hay. Says, I found some brome hay on Marketplace locally and reached out asking if they use herbicides and was told they use a pre-emergent called duracor. They mixed it with their fertilizer in the spring. He says, I prefer not have it used, but I don't know anything about it. And it's hard to find anything online. Does anyone have any experience with this? And then Laura replied, she gave an answer, but then she also gave a link and basically the answer is don't use it if you're putting it on your garden. That's it. Just don't, or your stuff probably won't grow. If you're using it to amend your garden or cover your garden,
fantastic answer.
Your garden's not going to grow. She says, she gave the technical terms of the chemical that's in it and says it'll destroy your garden. She gave a link to North Carolina State Extension and a post on it. I'll put the link to that in there. And this is why you should not use it. We've all heard, I think I've talked about the one called Grazon. Grazon is one that, it's common. You don't want that. And it will basically just pass right through the animal. It'll be in the manure. So don't use the manure or the hay that's been sprayed with that, and then use it on your garden. This stuff is the same way. It does the exact same thing. It carries through the animal. It supposedly doesn't harm the animal to eat it when it's been sprayed with that, but it stays in their manure and passes through. You put the manure on your garden. Guess what? Your garden's not going to grow.
Those two things are one of the reasons why I decided I had to bite the bullet and start my own compost this year.
Yeah. And it's a great reason to have rabbits or chickens or whatever and have to do your own stuff. But when it's been sprayed, even when the hay's been sprayed, it's been fed to the animals, and you think, oh, I'm going to go get this horse manure. I'm going to go get this cow manure. I'm going to go get, if you don't know the source of what they fed those animals, don't do that, because you could kill your garden. These are broadleaf herbicides. Guess what? Your garden or broadleaf plants, as far as it's concerned, they're weeds and they will kill them. And so, it passes through the animal and it stays in the manure. It takes
quite a while to get it out of your
Yes,
garden.
it does. There's a lot of homesteaders out there dealing with this.
Yes.
So just be aware. And it's why it's so important.
There's a few market gardeners that put it in their hoop house.
This is why it's so important to know the source of your material, to know what you're putting on your soil. It's part of the reason we're homesteaders, is because we want to know what we're putting on our soil, and we want to know what we're growing and all this stuff. We talked about this in the last episode.
Yeah.
Well, if you're grabbing, amendments from places you don't know, you're opening yourself up for some possible damage.
I mean, which makes it hard, because it's hard to source some of this.
So if you want to see that link to this and read the reasons or what it is exactly, I'll put it in the show notes. But I just thought it was important to share, and I'm glad that Laura was in there to give that guy the information he needed.
Great answer. Yeah,
it was a great answer. And she says here's why. And it wasn't just like my opinion. We got facts on from North Carolina State. Don't use it. Don't use the hay. Don't use the manure, because it'll damage your stuff. So, it has a purpose. It has a place, I guess, in large industry, but for your homestead, you don't want it. Yeah. So, that's all I have.
Join the Facebook page.
There you go. You'll get good answers like that. When you have a question like that, pop it in there. You get good answers.
I don't know. Is it 28,000 or something like that?
27 something. Yeah, I think it's pushing 28. So we're getting there. Yeah, it's growing. It used to be bigger. It used to be over 30,000 at one point, and then we had a big change there. So over the years, but it's growing again. It's a great resource. It's a resource. This is a resource podcast. We're talking about resources. The Homestead Front Porch Facebook group is a great resource. You need to be in there.
It is, and great people.
Yes, there is some really good stuff, and it's one of the few groups where you won't see a lot of arguing and stuff like that, because if there is, you won't be in there very long. That's all I got to say.
We don't tolerate that.
No, there won't be no name calling. There won't be. There might be, but it'll be really quick dealt with. So it's just a great place to be. So there are a lot during the day. When I get a chance, I get a little 5 minutes here or there. I pop in there and see what's going on.
Minutes a day.
Yep. So that's all I have. Anything else from you?
I think that's it. Well,
folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And until next week, happy homesteading and God bless.
And grow where you're planted.
Looking around, I finally see I think I need a change. The rat race, I want to flee. My world, I'll rearrange. I'm getting back to the roots of how it's meant to be. Growing gardens, picking fruit, racing livestock, living free. It's a modern homestead. Build a modern homestead. A lot of folks don't understand why I wanna live this way. They've never eaten from their land like we do here every day. Snapping beans like Grandma did, sitting on her front porch. Hunting and fishing like a kid once you've done all of your chores. It's a modern homestead. Build a modern homestead. Country or city, there's a way to make this change. You today.